Welcome to Coping Together, Mental Health Association of Central Florida's live web series dedicated to helping you develop coping strategies and wellness tools related to COVID-19, as well as talk about mental health. Coping Together was created in response to COVID-19's mandatory social distancing orders. This show seeks to learn and educate. We do not speak for any particular group. Overall, Coping Together serves as a platform through which we can demystify and unpack mental health concepts and hear from experts in the field. Please note that this show may discuss sensitive topics, including but not limited to sexual assault, suicide, and various traumas. If you find yourself feeling upset or struggling during any episode, listen to your body and pause the input. We will post related resources. Remember, it's okay to get help. Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Coping Together. I am your host, Charlotte Melton, with the Mental Health Association of Central Florida, here to talk to you about all things related to mental health, COVID-19, and how we're all getting through this journey together. I am so grateful to have with me today Donna and Diane from a local chapter of GRASP, and I look forward to sharing and connecting. I do want to give a little disclaimer about our program. Sometimes things are a bit triggering, so if you ever need a pause moment, just take it. We're going to be here for you. So thank you, Donna and Diane, for joining me today.
Hello.
So glad you guys are here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. So Donna, I'm going to start with you. I've used the phrase GRASP. It's an empowering connection. It hooks in my mind. But what is GRASP, and how did you get started with it?
Hi. Well, GRASP is an organization with over 50 chapters across the United States and Canada that was formed by a family that had lost, parents that had lost their daughter to an overdose of heroin. And GRASP actually stands for Grief Recovery After Substance Passing. And it is a grief group that provides support, sources, and help to families that have lost someone to substance use, not just overdose, but it could be cirrhosis of the liver due to alcohol use. So anyone, any family members, not just parents, aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters, and adult children. The reason that I formed this chapter here in Orlando was because I lost my daughter, Anna, 2 years ago in November to an overdose. And after she passed, I was desperately searching for a group, a support group, where I could be with other people that had experienced similar situation. There are many support grief groups for parents that have lost a child, but unfortunately, there was not any that specifically was for parents that had lost children to an overdose. And the grief groups that I did find were helpful, just in general, the grief experience. But I think that the grief from losing a child to overdose is a much different. It's not any worse or any better. It's just different. We experience a lot of guilt, a lot of what ifs, and it's kind of hard to sit next to a parent that lost a 4-year-old to cancer and feel like I can speak about losing a child to overdose, and not because my child had any less value, but it was just because of the stigma that goes along with drug addiction. So
there's a different context. You're so right, Donna. It resonates differently for people.
It does. And I just needed somewhere I could just vent and with people that understood. And so I found GRASP online, and there are some criteria you have to meet to be a facilitator. You have to be at least a year into your grief. So it was a little soon, but I kept in touch. And once a year had passed, I decided to form the group, and it just has taken off. It's helped me tremendously, along with helping so many other people that have experienced the same trauma and grief. So
thank you for sharing that, Donna.
Thank you. Thank you.
There's something so deeply connecting about your experience and what we do here at the Mental Health Association is know that that lived experience has such a profound value, but that there needs to be space for you first. That healing and care and filling your cup and recovery for yourself is paramount. Healers need to be healed as well. So it's so beautiful that that could give you some drive to move forward in a really tough time. I don't know anyone else listening. This is definitely connecting for me, and I already know your story a bit. So Donna, thank you so much for sharing that. Diane, you clearly have a connection. You're a co-facilitator, so we have a little insight to your story from what Donna shared with hers. What inspired your connection?
Well, I lost my daughter Kyla Ann in February of 2015. So I was a little ahead of Donna in the grief process. And Donna and I had met in another support group that was strictly parents that had lost a child to overdose. And I love that Donna was looking for more of an expansion of support into the family. Not just parents, but children, aunts, uncles, grandparents, whoever was grieving. And that's what GRASP did. It expanded that core out, grief support. And so when Donna told me that she was going to start the chapter, I offered my help in any way that I could. And lo and behold, it just developed into being a co-facilitator with her. And we have just gelled, and we just clicked, and it's been great. So we've been a year now with the group, and it's been going great.
And you
And
guys
I'm just so thankful, that she started that, because it is so much. It's just such a ripple effect. When someone passes from an overdose, it's not just the parents, but so many more people are grieving.
I think that's a really important thing to take a second and talk about, is that ripple effect, that memory and celebration of someone you care about isn't just to the parents, it isn't just to the household. There's so many people that are impacted in different ways. You guys have shared that your family is inspired in advocacy and support as well. I love that you guys support each other, but if you wanted to share a bit more about the ripple effect, I'd be interested in hearing from either of you on that.
Well, I have 4 other children besides Anna, and I have 11 grandchildren. So a very large family, very thankful for. And I've seen over the past 2 years through my grief process that every one of them is grieving differently. And some don't even talk about it. And most recently, just like my son, he had talked about his grief until just over this trip. We were riding together, and he brought up Anna and how we need to remember her and start having a celebration. And for the past 2 years, we've just been quiet. We just don't talk that much about it. Anna's daughter, who is 20, Caitlin, is an adult and a child of somebody that was lost, and has a very different had a very different connection to her mother. They were like best friends, and she loves coming to the GRASP group. She's able to share her perspective. So I think it's important not only that all the people that are affected get the help they need, but also what they bring to the table as far as their perspective on dealing with their grief, and how they dealt with the addiction itself, why Anna was alive, or the person was alive. Because it does affect everyone in the family. Addiction affects everyone, as well as afterwards when they pass, the grief also affects everyone. So
Oh, you take the wind out of my lungs a bit, because you know how you care about different people in your family and the way that everybody relates differently with their stories. And you touch on something that I hope people who are listening really hear, is there's timing and there are different ways. So you don't have to be ready for GRASP right now. And you don't have to be ready in a year or in 2, and you can do it differently. You can go to GRASP, you can encourage your family to go to GRASP, you can call our Connections program for other resources. But I think you talk a bit about the grace that we give ourselves to process in different ways. You're really profound, Donna. Thank you.
I know last night at our GRASP meeting, we had our first aunt that attended the meeting, and she was didn't have any children of her own, but she was very close with her nephew, and he has been gone, I think, a couple years now, and she has struggled. So she came to one of, I think it was her first support group meeting last night. So it was wonderful to see that, just like you say, it ripples out, the ripple effect. And I wouldn't think an aunt would be struggling like that, but, it affects everybody so differently.
And our family dynamics are so different. There isn't a nuclear family that just exists there now, where the 2.5 kids and how the household's supposed to look and who is the support. Sometimes grandma's mom, sometimes aunt is mom. There's just it's so exciting that we can be important to each other in those ways. I'm going to touch on just some of the structure of group and GRASP and make sure they understand that your group is monthly. And it is in person. So we're going to share your contact information at the end. So those of you that are listening and thinking, okay, I'm ready to attend, or I know exactly who I'm sharing this with, we're going to be able to share that information at the end, and you'll be able to reach out directly to Donna or Diane with questions you might have, and to reach out for the monthly in-person schedule. It is COVID safe, so wear your mask, because gathering together does offer a really unique set of support.
And we also do temp checks, just so you know.
I could add to those procedures. I said what I was sure of, Diane. I love that. That's perfect.
So everybody, just so people are comfortable knowing they can come to an in-person meeting, we try to do everything we can to make it safe.
And you mentioned spacing before too, right? So nobody's elbow to elbow. There's plenty of breathing room. Perfect. And you guys shared with me some hindsight thoughts. We talked about ripple effect, but we also talked about what I wish I would have known. And these are kind of nuggets and gifts you can offer to those that are listening who have not lost someone yet, but there's someone they might be worried about, or they're just a parent or a family member and say, okay, I need to be tuning in. I'm seeing the statistics of substance use. I'm seeing the statistics of loss, and I know that this is real. And I know that maybe I can do something. So what might you guys want to share from your experiences?
Go ahead, Diane.
Well, Tyler Ann was diagnosed bipolar, but we didn't get that diagnosis till she was, I would say 15, 16. That was her first time being Baker acted. And up until that point, my husband and I were very, very just uneducated on the mental health aspect of things. We were, told that it was a behavioral issue. We kept trying to figure out, well, okay, we've got 2 daughters, 2.5 years apart. We raised them the same. They're in the same environment. How are things so different, with how Tyler Ann is behaving? And, it put a strain on my husband and I's relationship, because I always had the feeling that there was something more than a behavioral thing going on. It wasn't just being the baby of the family or being spoiled. So I think educating ourselves on it was key.
Yeah.
And understanding, or trying to understand, how Tyler Ann's brain was wired, how she was thinking about things. It helped us to understand. And I think if parents did that now, and, we're looking for signs, with their child, to educate themselves on what signs, the kids might be having, is just key. it will give them a heads up on, how to navigate that, behavior, and how to, help the child through, any episode that they may be having. I just, I'm just a big proponent on educating yourselves on mental health.
And we don't know what we don't know. That's something that I talk about in my story about my mental health journey is I can't put my parents on the cross for anything that they didn't know to do and that I didn't know to talk about. So for the youth that's watching this and is feeling different things within themselves about a need or an impulse or a drive, and they're not sure they understand, dig into it further too. We can share links, and on our website, our Calling Our Connections program, you can find resources about indicators for substance use at very different ages before the use starts, because use comes from a need.
Right.
And there's something inside that they're trying to navigate. I really appreciate you sharing that kind of compassion we need to hear as parents and as individuals that, man, I wish I'd known. And that's why I appreciate you sharing it. And I hear it with gravity because you want somebody else to tune in and say, man, if I'm curious or I'm in doubt, Google the heck out of that until you're sure it's not a concern.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And maybe not to panic because we can be overcautious sometimes, but I really hear, look into it until you know more. That's so powerful, Diane. Thank you. And Donna, any nuggets you want to share?
Well, I think Diane and I connected very easily because we kind of have the same backstory as far as our children are concerned. Anna started at 13 having behavioral issues, and she did express this feeling of depression, as she described, and an emptiness. And I took her to many doctors at the time. It was, it's hormonal, it's behavioral, she'll grow out of it. And they didn't really address her OCD and depression until she was 18, and they started her on a medication. The problem that Anna had was that, as you know, and as many know, antidepressants take a while to kick in and to start working, 6 to 8 weeks, sometimes longer. And she found that taking other things had that instant gratification, that instant feeling better. And that was more appealing to her. And then it became an addiction. And getting her out of that cycle was very difficult. And we did at times, but she always went back to it because that feeling of euphoria or happiness that she got from taking her drug of choice was not there with no matter what the medication was long-term for her depression. So she craved something to fill that void that she had of depression and anxiety. And I just want, I think that a lot of it, we need to be open to communicate with our children, which is not very easy. It's very difficult, especially when it's teenagers or young adults communicating with older adults, but I think it's important to push to see what's going on and to know that they can come and talk to you, whatever, that anything is normal. I think Anna had a lot of shame because she had OCD and she had all these unwanted thoughts, and she felt like she was a bad person, that she was not normal, and that really kept her from talking about it because she was ashamed of the thoughts that she had. So those came out later. And just to say something to mention with the whole grief and young adults, my 13-year-old granddaughter had some behavioral issues, and her mother went through her device and found some things that were inappropriate. And she has an open communication with her, and she finally broke down and she said that she felt lost. Her mom had went through a divorce recently, and then she had lost her Aunt Anna, which is my daughter. And it never occurred to me that she was 11 at the time, would be affected by a loss of her aunt, And so when she said that, she said, I lost my dad and then I lost Aunt Anna, and I feel like I'm losing everything. that was so hard to hear, and she's 13. And we would have never really addressed that. Now we're addressing it and, talking about Anna more with her, because she had very fond memories of her, because Anna was really funny. And so she was keeping that inside, and no telling how that would affect her later on, with depression and things like that. So that was eye-opening. And I think it's just important to just be frank and be open. I don't know about Diane, but I'm older, and I come from a background of where you try to protect your children. You don't tell them that you're broke or you're poor or you're having, a sickness, or you're having these other things. You don't want them to worry. And I think that that's changed, that we really need to be open and honest with our children, and frank, and talk about things that are uncomfortable, but it could save a life down the road. So just
before you choked up, I was choking up, Donna. I would just give you a chance to breathe right now, because that's powerful. Anyone seeing my eyes, like, don't look at them. It's fine. So things, I had to give you a chance to breathe, because it was just so
Thank
big
you.
and I want to say 1,000 things. And that's where I'm getting caught up, because like Diane said earlier, that ripple effect, we're not sure who's hurting until we're talking about it. And you got to offer tools to your granddaughter you didn't have before you went through this journey.
Right.
And that openness you're talking about is not about trying to worry your children or show them concern. Definitely hearing how that is a core of a lot of parents, whether it's the generation or like any generation, there's a desire to protect. But the way we get to protect now is by talking and offering tools and saying that when you face this, you can get through it too. And also, I'm here and I want to talk to you about it, and please hug me. Because
it's kind of a safety net for them. They feel like they can talk about what they're facing, what they're feeling, and not be alone. You're their safety net. They feel they can come and talk to you about anything.
And the validation that it's normal. It's not abnormal or weird to think certain things or to feel certain things. And if we're not open with them now with social media, they're going to go to Google to try to find out about it, or to Snapchat, and that's not always the right thing and get the right information. So
search terms and filters can change your results.
Yes.
So something about us as Floridians, we're more familiar with palm trees than all of the deciduous trees. And I'm a little nature sometimes about things, and I like to get physical with a representation. You guys are making me think about palm trees and storms. That those are the things that are able to survive the duration of heavy variables because they're flexible. So we don't have to be strong by being firm. We could be strong by being resilient.
I like that analogy.
It's hard too, I think, for Donna and I, because we didn't raise our daughters with all this social media out there. That is a whole different ball game with parents nowadays. Now I know with Donna raising, the two grandchildren, you're dealing with that, with the social media aspect, like Caitlin talks about. But I can't imagine how hard that is now for, parents of, preteen children, and, having to monitor that. I don't know how they do that. Just adds another layer of difficulty.
Another encourager to keep talking, so that the things that you don't know that could be happening can come up at dinner or breakfast or the drive or whatever it is you guys are doing together. So just to wrap up, we've talked about a chapter in Central Florida of GRASP, and that GRASP is a unique grief environment for those that have lost someone to substance use. And it's not limited to parents. It's not a restrictive group. It's about connecting to the experience and the context of the loss, and that you're welcome at any time. And if facilitating empowers you, maybe reach out that way. But otherwise, there's a face-to-face group, which is a valuable way to grieve here in Central Florida. And we're going to share the information. Before we sign off, Donna, Diane, any last things we want to share?
I think just, Donna pointed out the most important thing is that parents just, just don't be afraid to connect with your child when they're showing, signs of removing or detaching themselves from you. Dig in and find out, what may be going on with them.
Very well said, Diane.
And I just want to say that for those that are grieving, whether you're a parent or a sister or brother, just know that one thing I found out was that anything was normal. You become very hard on yourself, and it's important to allow yourself to grieve. If you don't want to talk to people, that's normal. If you do, if you're angry, if you're sad, if you feel all those things in 5 minutes, that's normal. I'm a nurse, and I did hospice for 5 years, and I could tell family members, to the letter what the stages of grief were and how you're going to feel and what you need to do. And when I lost Anna, I felt ashamed that I was just, promoting that to people because, oh, sorry.
You're good.
Can you see me still?
You look great.
Okay. So, I realized soon after I lost Anna that there's no one way to grieve. And at Grass, we try to meet you where you're at in your grief. If you just want to connect with us and email or talk on the phone, and we've had people that have connected that way and want to come to the meeting, say I'm coming, and then last minute say I just can't do it. That's okay. You can try again next month. So don't feel like if you contact us, you just have to show up to a meeting. We're there to connect with you, whether it's by phone or email or what other way, and we'll be there physically at our meeting when you're ready. So just want to let everyone know that.
That's so reassuring, Donna, and it's so important. That's something we face in substance use and mental health recovery is you feel weird when you don't show up and you said you were going to, and is that now a barrier? No, it's not. And
absolutely.
And that the two people you're reaching out to here on screen have walked their walk, and they know that your walk is different, and they're listening. So I hope that you feel welcome and connected. So thank you guys for tuning in today to our episode of Coping Together. We're going to share Donna and Diane's information, and I hope that you feel safe and well, and if not, are able to reach out so that we can connect and support you in that journey. So thank you all so much. It's okay.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Thank you for having us, Charlotte.
Thank you, Diane and Donna.